nothing will train a movement, right? The weak points of a movement like that movement. So by reinforcing the stuff that you need to build up, the scap packing, the glute driving, the driving the bar to glutes, the lats being involved, reinforcing that stuff is training those muscles in a much more effective way for that movement than doing lat pull downs and doing a bunch of glute exercises and other shit is ever gonna do. You're never gonna have that kind of carryover. Because it's cool to be able to like look good and have big muscles, but if they don't do shit, then what's the point?
All show, no go.
Right, that's what I mean, to look good getting your ass kicked.
I filmed a little selfie video of me doing deadlift, and it was just like we were talking about earlier. I wanted to move heavy weight because I liked the way it felt.
But it was ugly.
Yeah, it was ugly. It was disgusting. So I got a bunch of comments on it. Majority were even our team members letting us know, hey, look, they had all kinds of things to say. So I implemented them a week later, and I couldn't even budge the bar.
And everything went to shit. You
Everything went to shit.
20 things at once, too. That's another.
Exactly. It wasn't one.
Paralysis by analysis. That's what we call it.
That's right.
So you want to make improvements, but you want to make improvements that allow you to keep moving.
Exactly.
Right?
I want to lift heavy weight because I like the way it feels, and no one else has to know about it.
Me too. All right, so how about we do this? First, let me see what it looks like.
Okay.
So I have a starting point. I'm going to watch from the side.
Okay. And I'm just going to do what I normally do.
Just do what you normally do. Okay. All right, not bad. I want you to stop real quick. Let's just start from scratch here, right?
Okay.
So move your feet under the bar like you're trying to, almost like you're going to split. Now it's too close, right? So you want to split your feet, right? The inside line should be about half foot. That's right where you're at. It looks pretty good.
Okay.
Okay. So now think about this. Bend your knees till you touch the bar. It's going to seem crazy, right? Now the rest of the way down to the bar has to come from your hips moving back. So try that real quick to get an idea of, okay. Now grab the bar. Now from here, don't allow the bar to move, but bring your hips up and straighten your legs. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of bent over. So you're starting over. There you go. Don't let the bar move. Don't bring it closer. So try to keep it there. Okay. Bring your hips up now and don't let the bar move. Can you do that? Feeling a lot of pulling on your hammies?
Yep.
That's okay. So what this position allows you to do is fill your belly, fill your midsection, and expand with air to brace beforehand. So go ahead, do that first. Right? Okay, now you're gonna brace. So you're gonna like kind of pull your ribs towards your hips, right? Then I want you to think about the second part here is look at me. You're gonna pack the scaps down as hard as you can.
Okay.
Okay, drop your hips and pull. Much harder. Again, down, let it relax. Now straighten your legs, big air, fill and brace.
Yep.
Pack those scaps, drop and pop. You're dropping a lot less, but it actually looks better. Go ahead, again. Now I want you to again bring the hips up high, big air, drop. I want you to explode off the floor, so speed off the floor. Good, but we didn't drop at all. You didn't drop your hips at all from that position. No. So again, hips up, big air. Drop them like you're gonna initiate, the same time pack the scaps. Good, okay. So we got that much down, right? That part you're pretty much getting the handle on that. Now,
so it feels like it's obviously uncomfortable, right?
Right.
And it feels mostly in my upper back.
So the reason that we're packing those scaps, right? It's important to understand why you're doing stuff. That's really where you're attached to the bar. So you hear a lot of people talk about like, well, where are your shoulders? Are your shoulders over the bar?
Yeah.
Kind of really doesn't matter as much as where your scaps are, right? Because that's kind of, by adjusting the scaps, we're adjusting where you are attached to your torso, right?
Okay,
so where the bar is loaded, right?
Yeah.
So packing those scaps down is crucial, and they should always be packed down. They're going to go down anyway, but by having them there to begin with, you have control over that. So it's a conscious decision to do that. So by packing the scaps, a lot of times this gets corrected anyway as people take the slack. right? So you talk about taking the slack out of the bar. You're not just taking the slack out of the bar, you're taking the slack out of you too.
It's pulling this down.
Right,
It's like bringing
exactly.
everything down.
Right, so we're taking the slack out of your arms, taking the, exactly.
Take the slack out of your scaps.
Bottoming out the scaps, right?
Yeah.
So by doing that, and then you get into a position where you're gonna pull, you can effectively take the slack.
Yeah.
Now, it's gonna be almost floating in order for you to do that. So I want you to get into your starting position, grab the bar again. Okay. So sort of hips up. Don't look, first of all, I think you're grabbing a little too narrow. Grab a little bit wider. Good. Just make sure it's even, okay? So pull the scaps down, big air, you're not gonna pull. You're just gonna take the slack. So the plates might be floating, that's okay. Go ahead, do that. Drop your hips, get it closer to you. Good, good, now relax. Hold that for 5 seconds. So let's kind of get comfortable with the most uncomfortable portion of the lift. So brace hard, drop the hips, pull the scaps down. Good. So you're taking the slack. Try to hold that for 5 seconds.
Okay.
3, 4, 5. All right, one more time. Big air, just taking the slack again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you see what's happening where the bar's out in front of you? And as you're taking that slack, it's like floating and coming back to you.
Right.
So we don't want that to happen. So that's giving you a very clear picture of what's happening when you initiate the rep. So instead, let's get it to where it's not actually swinging back, but instead, it's actually just you're gonna be able to take the slack. Eventually, when there's enough plates on there, which there will be one day, it'll bend.
Right, yeah.
And then you'll be able to wedge yourself in. Like for me, that's like 4 or 5 plates. You know, but until then, the plates are hovering when I warm up.
Got it.
Okay?
Got it.
So let's see that again one more time for 5 seconds. So big air, keeping it close to you. Brace in, pull the scaps down, take the slack. Good. One more time, we're gonna take that slack and then you're gonna pull the rest of the rep. Okay. Go ahead, take that slack. 1, 2, 3, 4. Draw the glutes forward. Good. Down. Now. So you get the idea of what we're doing where we're taking the slack here. Obviously, it can be very hard even with only 135 pounds.
So what I'm doing is, got my legs straight, or my hips are up, rather. Right. I fill up my stomach full of air.
Right, not just your stomach, but the whole midsection.
Whole midsection.
Right, so if you have a belt on, think about expanding your back into the belt. I think that's the best way to cue it.
I get my scaps back.
Yep. Well,
I
down.
take the slack.
You don't necessarily pull them back, you're just pulling them down.
Down.
Yep.
Like down this way or down that way. You know what I mean?
Well, they're only going to go down one way, but yeah, like that.
Yeah.
So if you go forward, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Back here.
We don't want to allow any type of protraction of the scaps there.
Got it.
But we're not necessarily consciously retracting them.
Gotcha.
We're just pulling them down and depressing them.
Okay. Yep.
So you'll feel that's kind of like your lats, right? Once you took that slack and you initiated, I don't know if you could even hear me when I was telling you to drive the glutes, right?
From like this point.
Yeah, so once you have that slack, it's really all glutes forward, right?
Okay.
So there's a cue that we use for that, glutes to bar, bar to glutes, right?
Glutes
so
to
part
bar.
of that is driving your glutes into the bar, and that's the part everybody gets. But the other part, a lot of people don't get, and that is
bar to the glutes.
Is using like a lat pull down, like a lat push down.
Like a swim, yeah.
Yeah, okay, like you're using your lats to push the bar into yourself, and that's gonna prevent it from getting away from you the way it does. You know, it's getting away and swinging back.
Yeah.
That's what's killing you. So this is the part of the movement that sucks, right?
Yeah,
The initiation is what sucks. So you're trying to avoid that at the cost of technical efficiency. When you're saying like how it's fun to just pull and you don't care how it looks, right? What's happening is you're trying to like circumvent the difficult part and still do the lift.
Exactly.
To some degree, you can do that. Eventually, discs start shooting across the room and all kind of unfun shit happens, right? So what we really want to do is get you in a position where you can train that portion of the lift so that it'll carry over into the rest, okay? So first thing first, grab the bar again. Remember, a little wider than you were initially grabbing it because that was a little too narrow, I think. Okay? Pack those scaps down as you drop your hips. So big air, drop and pop. And glutes to bar, bar to glutes. Good.
So let me try that again because I wasn't even thinking about bar to glutes.
As soon as you initiate, you're getting it. No, that's it. This is one step at a time. That's what I mean. If you try and change 20 fucking things, you're not going to change anything.
You miss one of them, yeah.
Right. So that's why we'll do one thing at a time. So grab the bar, take that slack first. Ready?
Okay,
and when you take that slack, and like you're gonna hold it for 5 seconds, only I'll tell you glutes, ready?
Okay.
So go ahead, take the slack. Glutes. Better. So for some reason, that was like 3 times as fast as when you're pulling off of the floor when you take the slack first. That's moving a lot better. So,
Yeah.
and I think it's just a matter of you consciously
Feeling
cueing
it, yeah.
Yeah, you're cueing it. You know what you're doing, right? So again, the reason I'm making you do these holds is not to be a dick, but so you can realize that like nothing bad is gonna happen during that period. Like that's important, man. Like that getting into the hole, and that's when people punk out. Like that's the most important part, is building up that toughness where you're like, it sucks for a second, but if I can get through, I'm getting to a good position when I initiate, I'll be fine. And that's what you have to remember. So go ahead. So pack those scaps down, good. Take that slack, speed, glutes, good, much better. Now you see how you're almost hyperextending a little?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we don't want that, and how to prevent it is bar to glutes. So that it becomes,
then it comes straight up, straight up and down.
Pushing it into it, right. Does that make a little more sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's try to not actually break up the taking the slack.
Okay.
So take the slack and then initiate.
Now when I do that, since you've been doing this for so long, can you still tell what part I'm missing if I'm missing a part?
No, yeah.
All right, well then let's see it.
I could tell from the beginning. I just have to break it down so you can fix it.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So.
Good. That's like 50 times better than the first rep you did. I wish we could show the video from before and after so you could see. I don't know about the Instagram one, but the first one you did today was like literally 1/10 of that speed.
Yeah, right, it was slow.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, when we started to make the corrections, it was like, it was like grinding, and now it's, and it looks good. So that's the idea. So first we fix the tech, then we fix the speed. Don't worry about the speed until the technique is where we want it. So again, just give me one more off the floor. One solid movement, okay? Remember, you're packing the scaps, you're taking the slack, speed off the floor, glutes. That's it. That's it.
I've never heard anyone say this, but throwing the bar towards my body keeps that bar straight up and down.
It sure does. And you know what else it does? It activates your lats. And what are your lats doing through the deadlift? A very important static role to stabilize the spine and the midsection to keep you from losing, your thoracic and moving forward. Right? So think about that. If your lats aren't active on the deadlift, if you're not setting up on, that's the whole reason I emphasize pack the scaps, pack the scaps, pack the scaps. Like you're pulling them down, right? But if you're not pulling them in, like think about the difference. Like just feel this in your head real quick. First, pack the scaps down. Now push in like you're doing, right?
Oh yeah. That's my whole back's tight.
Right, that's the point.
So what I've done before, and this obviously it doesn't work, but I would pack the scaps, but then after the bar starts coming up, then I'm done. I'm done with that part.
Right. Yeah. Because you think that, because what ends up happening is, right, like I was saying, it's sort of involuntarily anyway you're going to max out scap depression, but only at the part where you're initiating. As soon as you move, it's like a pendulum effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're not consciously deciding to max out the bottoming out the scaps, you're not going to be stable throughout the whole movement.
Right.
So the first part is bottoming out the scaps, then the lats. And the lats come from the bar to glutes part.
Bar to glutes.
So I think glutes to bar to glutes is good to emphasize a lockout, but it will activate that stuff so that throughout the whole rep, throughout the rest of the session.
So, and it's not like I have to go train my scapula or my lats. Those are strong enough.
Right.
It's the technique and
right. And if you have an issue where you're not able to get the scaps into a good position, a lot of times using bands to pull down to activate. Yeah, exactly. So scap pull downs, just depressions, exactly. I do that first, and then honestly, like I'll use one of the guns or a ball and break up underneath the scap if there's any adhesions. That some people can't get into a good position with their scaps for that reason, or you'll see a lot of times people put the bar on their back to squat and it's crooked as hell because one scap from pressing one of their scaps has a buildup of adhesions underneath and isn't moving correctly. A lot of times you can fix that stuff with just minor like manipulation.
Yeah.
Like with actually like getting blood in there and breaking it up. Try that first, before you decide that you have something wrong with you.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? That's a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's just how it is. My stuff's just uneven. It's really, a lot of times it's easy to fix, man.
That's right.
Another thing with the glutes to bar to glutes cue is I like to think about, and one thing that I'll prescribe is I'll say like 1 counts on every rep. Like hold it for a 1 count. So it's actually a static part of the movement. So glutes to bar to glutes, fight for 1, down, 1, down. By the time you get to the end, like by the time people get to their AMRAP, I don't even care anymore because your glutes are so active and so fried.
Yeah.
And your lower lats are so active and so fried that they're definitely involved, you know, the way they need to be.
So when you talk about like pushing those fatigue limits, like would that particular part help with that?
So the fact that we're working with a lower percentage range, the fact that we're working with submaximal training, right, is beneficial in a number of ways. Namely, the biggest benefit is probably with technique correction, right? Because it allows you to implement cues effectively. If we're working over 90%, good fucking luck, man.
Right.
I've never really seen somebody effectively correct something at 90% or more. So what do you have? Your warm-ups to make corrections and just hope it carries over into the main lift.
Yeah.
With this, we're integrating a new movement pattern. You know what I mean? You're learning how to pull correctly. You're training it. You're able to actually make corrections on the fly. If you video from a side view video and you look at it and you're like, I need to be doing more, whatever. I need to hold these bar to glutes a little bit better. You can actually diagnose and correct within a session. And now your training is good. So like, this is something I've talked about before. If you're doing sets of 5 and like the first rep is good, the second rep is good, the third rep, fourth rep, fifth rep is garbage. 60% of your training, you're training yourself to suck.
That's
literally
right,
to train inefficiently. What if you're doing only 90%? What if you're doing maybe 1 or 2 lifts over 90? You got a 50-50 shot.
You're wiring those neurons to do bad reps.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So like when you think, what is a motor neuron, right? What is a motor recruitment pattern? It's a series of motor neurons and the fibers that they innervate being fired in a sequential pattern. And the sequence changes if you change the movement. So you don't know how to deadlift anymore. You're learning. You know, you had the way that you used to know how, and now this is how we train the new movement pattern.
That's right.
The better one, right? So it stands to reason that you're gonna suck at first.
Yeah.
Like the first rep you did like this was horrible. But just through a few corrections and a few ironing out, well, what did this take us, 5 minutes?
Right.
Right, to iron out the little things that were wrong, we're able to, now you have a working model.
So when I'm looking to improve, I can work on those. It was basically, we broke it down into 2 separate movements, right? It was the slack out, and then it was the glutes to bar to glutes, right?
At first we had to do that.
Right.
I don't want you to continue to think of it that way because ideally we want to think of it as one movement, right? Like how does evolution work in nature, right? Like when you think of like, from a biological standpoint, right? Like it'll make a minor correction.
Yeah, right.
Because of the stimulus.
Ripple, right.
Small ripple, small. It doesn't revamp the whole system every time you need to fix something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It just changes what's wrong.
So I would work on something like that
this.
for, like, I would do my warm-ups like that maybe, for instance, or...
Do your warm-ups and then emphasize those cues on every single rep.
Right.
Like I don't think you should do your warm-ups where you're breaking up. That was just for you to learn.
Okay.
No. That was just for you to learn to break it up because it was too much at once.
And I think I could feel, like I'd be able to feel when that's off.
Well, you'll be able to see for sure. Don't trust how you feel. Never trust the way something feels because something could feel really hard and be moving really fast.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a big fan of RPE for that reason. Like you're trying to teach someone how to integrate a bunch of important cues and how to learn how to do a movement. And also, like I need you to be this highly sensitive apparatus that's able to detect exactly how much exertion.
That's a good point.
It's too much and it's stupid and it's totally unnecessary. Why do you need to know that? Why do you need to consider these additional factors? It's not important. What is your max? What percentage are we working with? Are you able to perform within a range that's acceptable with that percentage of your max? The answer is yes. That's all that matters.
That's it.
Doesn't matter what the RPE is, right?
Right.
But a lot of times things seem really hard. They feel really hard. And when you watch them, they fly. So that's why performance is a far better indicator of what's going on than how something feels.
That's a good point.
Feels, not reels. Right? That's everybody's problem right now.
Not reels.
Right? It's more concerned with feels than reels.
That's good. That's
I
good.
want reality. Like I want to see like we need some objective points of measurement here.
That's awesome. So now when I go to watch the videos when I'm training, what are some of the things that you saw my first deadlift? I mean, what are the cues that I'm looking for when I'm watching the video?
taking the slack first, right? So in other words, watch your scaps. Are you visibly depressing the scaps? Are you visibly packing the scaps? Right? Can you see it?
Yeah, I can.
If you can't see it in the video, then you need to reinforce it.
Got it.
Because it should be visible.
Boom.
And like you see how mine is extremely visible?
Yeah.
Yours is not as much. It'll improve.
Got it.
Okay? You will continue to improve your ability to, yeah, exactly. Your ability to pull down, right? Like you'll get more, which is beneficial for a number of reasons. But yeah, like you want to get a little lower if you can. And you'll get better mobility within your scapula, and your ability to depress it will become an afterthought. But that takes training.
Sure.
So that's an aspect of it. And that's why like when we look at a movement, like you're not just deadlifting. You're doing a lot of other things.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you're putting the amount of effort that you need to into making sure that those things are done correctly, in the percentage range we're training, you're getting a lot of practice. So when the time comes to do a heavy lift, you're ready.
Makes sense.
You know?
Makes sense. That's good.
Yeah. So initially, packing the scaps, and then think about it, lockout. So you have a decent starting, what's the goal, right? So the why, right?
Right.
Why are we packing the scaps? So you get a good starting position.
Yes.
So that once you have taken the slack, everything's not relaxed, and then you were talking about before buckles. We're consciously pulling down those scaps, right? So you're starting in a good starting position. Then the second part is glutes to bar, bar to glutes. Once that bar's moving, once you initiate, once you drive the floor away, right?
Right.
You're just driving those. So what's easier, this or this? Right?
Right, yeah.
So driving the glutes into the bar, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be, when you think about like the glutes are they're the main mover for the hips, for hip extension. They are the prime mover for hip extension. So, and not to mention they're the largest muscle group in the body. It's kind of important too. So we want to take advantage of those two aspects. That should be the main thing that we're thinking about throughout a deadlift. And by cueing that at lockout, the glutes to bar, bar to glutes, not only are we involving the lats and glutes more in lockout, so pulling you perfectly straight, so there's no question about whether or not you locked it out, but also you're involving those, because now they're being used more, so they're involved in the rest of the lift more too.
There you go.
They're being fatigued more. Training in that way allows them to be involved more in that way too. So
reset every rep.
Reset every rep. So you don't want to do like the idea of constant tension and so forth. There is a use for that. I mean, I've seen some pretty decent use for that. Like Goggins knows how to use it in programming in a way that's effective for teaching beginners, and not only that, for teaching competitors in general how we're going to compete. We want to train the way we compete, right?
Reset every rep.
So think about it. We have to break resting inertia every single rep on the platform. So we want to break resting inertia every single rep in training.
Put the bar down completely, right?
But you don't gotta let go of it.
Let go of
but
it.
Put it down, that gives you the opportunity to reset, to reinforce or packing each portion of the movement, that checklist, right? Which you're gonna know what goes on your checklist.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You remember what that is, so that's that. So do you wanna try with
pack?
Yeah.
Hips up.
Take that slack and pull. Glutes to bar. Good. I think you could drop your hips even a little more to wedge yourself in. Not too much more. So fill, brace, scaps, drop and pop. That actually looks all right. I wouldn't change the hips at all. I think you were getting too low with your hips before too. That was probably part of the problem.
So I only go as low as my scaps will allow, right? With my hips.
You only go as low as you need, yeah. I mean, so in other words, when we look, so that was too low. So the way you were the first time was perfect. So from the side, we want it to almost look like your hips are just moving forward. They're just extending the hips the way that we want. Like, so your glutes are just extending your hips. So there's not a bunch of like, you're not squatting the bar up. Yeah. Boom. That looks good. I'm curious to see with another plate if we can hold it together.
Let's see.
How do you determine stance width?
Well, it depends. So for a conventional person, like you have to play with it. It's individual. I've had people that actually their heels are touching when they pull. You know, that are good. A lot of that has to do with the nature of the hip capsule. So I've seen imaging of femurs that look like this, and like this, and like this, and they're all considered normal. So there's a range, you know. So if you're in a position where you're set up great to be a sumo puller, and that's the shape of the tip of your femur. Just for example, that's just looking at one side. There's a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of things to consider. There's also the nature of the hip capsule itself, or the acetabulum. But like, so if you're someone who's set up to do really well sumo-wise, and then you switch to conventional, right? You might still be able to pull conventional, but you're not going to be able to get as narrow, you know, for example. Whereas some people are so strong conventional, they're super strong off the floor with their feet close together. I had a female, for example, who could actually touch her feet together when she would pull. That's probably like 1 in 1,000 deadlifters can do that. It's so rare, you know. Who else? Actually, I want to say Wendler had a very close stance, like where he almost was touching his heels. It's very rare. Like, so that's not how I would teach it. You know what I mean? And then, so we start with where you naturally, I had a technique I used for years that I just don't use anymore, where I would let people hang on a pull-up bar and drop.
That's where their feet should be, right?
You naturally are going to land in the mechanically strongest position. So
yeah, it makes sense.
That's probably the best bet. It's a good starting point. And then there's a lot of other stuff to consider, you know. But yeah, so let's see if we can hold this together.
Okay.
The stuff that we just talked about. So pack in the slack, big air, and we're gonna drop and pop. Glutes to bar, bar to glutes. Better. So big air again, don't let go. Big air, brace. And see, that was too far away from you. Okay.
It started too far
the
away,
reason it's too far away from you, the reason I know that is because it actually is swinging in as you pull.
The bar is swinging in.
Yeah, it's coming in, and then you're correcting. That's why you're slow off the floor. So a little closer. That looks good there. So just maybe think about lats a little bit while you're packing the scaps. As you're wedging yourself in, think about wedging that bar in too. Ready? Take that slack. Good. That was the prettiest deadlift maybe you did today.
Yeah?
Yeah. That looked fantastic. I mean, obviously it could be a little more speedy. So again, let's
one
try
more.
that again with some speed. Put a little fire on it. It's great. How's that feel, all right?
Yeah.
I mean, it looks a lot easier. That looked easier than the first time you pulled the 135 with trying to implement the cues.
Right, yeah.
So you see how, like, kind of understanding what you're doing, not taking too much on at once, the carryover can be tremendous. So train like this for a while.
And I can even see how making it, I can see how this is going to come pretty quickly too. Like,
so what you were saying, what, like 315 is?
at 315 on it, I pulled it twice, and it was, the bar was like way out here, and I was just.
Right, so why not use a training max of like 315 or 330 or whatever you think, you know, whatever you can, in your right mind that you can actually defend as being a max.
Okay.
Right, and then use a percentage of that, like say maybe 80% or 75% for triples. So for say 75% for 5 sets of 3, and the goal is to meet that volume without any breakdown.
Yep.
And then when you get to the point where you're able to do that for like a full mesocycle for like, say 5 or 6 weeks, right? Then maybe AMRAP the last set. So just do triples and then try and do as many as you can get without breaking down the last set. And what the reason that AMRAPs are so effective is nothing will train a movement, right? The weak points of a movement like that movement. So by reinforcing the stuff that you need to build up, the scap packing, the glute driving, the driving the bar to glutes, the lats being involved, reinforcing that stuff is training those muscles in a much more effective way for that movement than doing lat pull downs and doing a bunch of glute exercises and other shit is ever gonna do. You're never gonna have that kind of carryover. So the best way to do it is to learn how to involve those muscles in the movement. So if we know there's an issue where glutes aren't working as much, do some glute activation. Maybe do some hip flexor stretching before training.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So glute activation is one thing. Maybe do some lat activation.
Yeah.
You know, with bands where you're actually mimicking that movement. But the real objective is going to be to train the movement in a way that's going to develop the movement.
Right.
Right.
And like you said,
And that's
if I
how
want to get my
so
deadlift,
get those muscles involved in the movement. But, yeah.
if I want to get this stronger, I can sacrifice doing some of the other shit that I would normally do because I think I'm going to lose my gains, right?
You ain't losing your game.
I'm not going to lose your gains, right?
You won't. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'll give you the example right now. Like, what I'm doing right now is experimental. It's not really what I wouldn't consider it to be fist set. But, like, I haven't done a lat movement in 6 months. My lats are bigger than they were when I started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to lose. If they're involved,
Right.
if what we're doing is effective and you're actually getting them involved in the movement, they're getting hit.
That's right.
Not only are they getting hit, they're getting hit in a way that's going to benefit you.
Right.
Because it's cool to be able to like look good and have big muscles, but if they don't do shit, then what's the point?
All show, no go.
Right, that's what I mean. It's looking good getting your ass kicked. It's not, you know what I mean? How's that helpful?
That's right. That's right.
Right.
Swede, this was awesome, man. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to help,
It's
bro.
going to be good, man.
Tell you what, let's give you a real training max and have you do a triple that actually will work. So hold on a minute here. So we'll say your training max right now for our purposes is, I'm gonna say 330, right? I'm not saying that that's like your actual.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you pulled more than that?
No.
Okay, so we'll say 330 is a training max.
Okay.
Right? That will have you at 250 for 75%, right?
Okay.
So let's just make it 250.
So I hit this for a triple.
That would be like, so the idea would be your training would be to hit this for 5 triples.
Okay.
And when you're able to,
5 triples.
and then maybe add 5 pounds per session and try to preserve the corrections.
Preserve
So
the
video what you're
corrections.
doing, watch what you're doing. Is it starting to fall apart? Does it look like shit? If it does, stop. If it doesn't, the next time you go through, so after you do a full mesocycle, 5-6 weeks, the next time, AMRAP your last ones. So start over at the beginning weight again like this. Only now, the fifth set, you would AMRAP it.
Got
I'm
it.
not saying this is the method, but that's a similar enough.
How many days a week would I do this?
One.
1 day a week.
Maximal. Yeah, at most one. So you could do once every 9 days even.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So, but realistically, if you're going to do like, if you're doing a 7-day split, this is a reasonable way to approach the issue that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Triple, right? Or we reset every time. We just put the bar down, though.
Yeah.
Right?
You're going to reset every time for three full resets. Okay.
Okay.
So let's try to make these perfect. So big air. Pull those scaps. Drop and pop. Glutes. Good. Good. Air. Drop and pop. Glutes. Good. Big air. Drop and pop. Glutes. Glutes. Good. Great. How about that? So doing that for 5 sets, that's going to get you where you need to be, dude. All right?
That's good, man.
That's it.
Thank you.
You got it. I'm happy to help, brother.